Welcome. Welcome everyone.
Hi, good morning.
Hello. It's great to see everyone from the other sessions. You guys are here again. Thank you. I hope you had a chance to put in your name in the opportunity drawing. Remember, every session that you attend, you actually get to have another entry for the opportunity drawing. So more opportunities to win. But of course, that's not really the reason why we're here, right? Yeah. All right, other people are still coming in. So let's wait like maybe a minute more. Yeah, and let's go ahead and mute ourselves so that way we don't interrupt our speaker. Thank you so much. More people are coming, so let's just wait for a few seconds here. All right, let's get started. Again, this is Leah Martinez from Rio Hondo College, and you are in the Breaking the Mold Men in Early Childhood Education session, presented, of course, by our very own Jorge Ramirez. I say very own because Jorge actually has been a mentor for our community partnerships for teacher pipeline. And it's all yours, Jorge. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, La. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here on a Saturday. Appreciate your time. Hopefully, our conversation today will be worth your Saturday morning. I know some of us would rather be watching cartoons. Are there still cartoons nowadays? I miss Voltron and what is it? Thundercats. Those are always good cartoons. Going to say by the bow, not to date myself or anything, but um, yeah, so today we'll have a conversation with you about breaking the mold, men in early childhood education. I'm going to share with you my journey in my field. And hopefully, some of the things that I talk about would be able to resonate with you. Um, you're always welcome to reach out to me. That's a QR code where I do accept cash, I do accept Zelle, anything you want to send me. No, I'm kidding. It's not for that. It's for you to get in contact with me. You can, it gives you access to my LinkedIn. You also have my personal email there if you have any questions in the future, if there's any conversations you want to have, you want to schedule an appointment, you want to ask for advice or anything that I can do to help, please feel free to ask. That's what I'm here for. Um, men in early childhood education has been a conversation that I've had throughout my career. And I'll be honest with you, at times I felt like I didn't belong there. One, because it's predominantly a field that women are mainly involved in, and two, well, just education as a whole, and two, I was pressured a lot by my culture into taking a different path, wanting to be a provider and now a father of two. It was always make sure you find a career that's going to pay, quote unquote, enough money, whatever that is, to provide for your family. So there's a lot of things that I do in my career, and I'm very blessed and fortunate to have the opportunities. I am a master teacher at Pacific Oaks Children's School. If you guys are ever in Pasadena and you want to stop by to see a school that looks like nothing you've ever seen before, please shoot me an email and we can get in contact so you guys can check out our approach of working with children. It's a very progressive school. We really focus on children development. We focus on them as individuals, and we strive to push the equity envelope for children and families. On top of that, I also teach at Cal State LA and East LA College. I do teach child development. I just started my doctoral research program at Pacific Oaks College, and I am researching social and emotional development, which you'll hear about today. So I'm going to invite you guys to chime in on the chat. If you want to unmute yourself, please do so. And the question that I want to ask you is, who was your favorite teacher growing up? If you want to go back to your earlier years, I see some of you are currently enrolled in my class, and I know you're young enough to remember your kindergarten years. I, on the other hand, don't. Tell me, thank you. Marini is in, Miss Kong, third grade. What grade were you in? Why was this your favorite teacher? Tell me some qualities that the teacher had. My favorite teacher was in fifth grade, Mr. Smith. I went to Malabar Elementary School, and Mr. Smith was a male, and he was the first male teacher I had at that time. Prior to that, I had all female teachers, and it was very interesting into the way he communicated with us and the type of relationship he built with us in the classroom, and more specifically with me. He was very centered on sports. He developed organized games during recess for us. So we were able to get into teams and push the aspect of collaboration with each other. Prior to that, it was more of here's the content, memorize it, write it down, and then we'll give you a test on Friday. I struggled in my early elementary years because I didn't speak English. I was born in Mexico, my older brother, myself, mom and dad. And when we came into this country, we didn't have anyone to go to help with English. So math, I was pretty good, but reading comprehension and everything that included reading, I struggled with because I didn't have those English skills. So let me go to the chat real quick and see a lot of you guys coming in. Oh, Hector, awesome. You went to Pacific Oaks, cool. Second grade, first grade, 11th grade, Arlene, okay. Kinder. Let me see. Kindergarten teacher, Athena. Ms. Hernandez, 9th grade, 10th grade. Mr. Snyder, 7th grade, all right. Cool, awesome. So I'm glad that you had an opportunity to remember who your favorite teachers were. As a preschool teacher, not that I'm aiming to be anyone's favorite teacher, but I am aiming to develop meaningful relationship with these children and to start a foundation with them to have a good connection at school. So just for the record, this is not a conversation of men are better than women or women are better than men. This is a conversation of my journey as a man in the field and some of the challenges that I faced, and we'll dive into those. Like I said, I am specifically researching and focused on early childhood education. Early childhood education, what NAYC, it's pretty much our organization nationwide that provides what is developmentally appropriate practices. And the way that they classify early childhood education is anything that focuses on birth up until 8 years old. So we're talking about up to 3rd grade. What is an early childhood educator? Well, it's someone that promotes learning and development in children individually. This is not the approach of rote teaching, rote learning. This is more of focusing on individuals to help them develop those critical skills that helps them understand concepts. Early childhood is a profession. And please, those of you that are in the field, don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. I know that for me personally, it was a trigger when people would say, oh, you're just a glorified babysitter, or you're a very expensive babysitter. I'm like, well, now I'm at a point in my career where you can call me whatever you want. I know what I do, and that is I develop children. And early childhood education is very dear to me because I remember back to my early childhood education years, and be honest, they sucked. And the reason why they sucked was because I didn't have teachers that developed an interest into helping me understand life, academics, or even develop social emotional awareness. It was more of it's Monday, here are 10 words, memorize them, write them down 3 times, write them in a sentence, put them in alphabetical order, have an adult quiz you, and then I'll give you a test on Friday and see how good you do. Unfortunately, some of those strategies are still used now. If you critically dive into that aspect of teaching, there really isn't much critical thinking going into that. It's more of rote learning. It's more of memorizations. The research that I've done, it turns out that when children are not involved in learning their knowledge, creating meaningful knowledge, long term, they tend to struggle more academically. And I'll provide you some research with that. As far as men in early childhood education, according to a research that was done in 2015, there's less than 2% of men in the workforce. So depending how you look at it, this can be a good thing or this can't be a good thing. Me as a male, I see myself as one of my close friends, Jim Goodrich, who teaches at Cal State LA. He's also the director at Annaping Early Education Center at Cal State LA. He refers to us as we're unicorns of the field. We are not many, but we do a really good job at the things that we do. So research that I found into why there isn't that many men in the field is that there's three primary factors that play into it. One, from a societal lens, men are viewed as suspects working with kids. Why does a man want to work with young children? Two, there's a lack of competencies required to work for early childhood education. Ooh, I'm going to need that again. Thank you. And the other factor is that early childhood education does not deliver a man's career aspiration, because it's not just teaching, it's teaching young children. And again, depending on how you view early childhood education, it can be that base to break societal norms practice. We'll dive a little bit into cultural practices as well, but this is a societal perspective, a lens that people have with men coming into the field. And again, not going to get into the conversation of who's better, who's not, but this is just some research that's out there for us to consider. So here's my journey in the 24 years that I have experience. I've always wanted to be a teacher because, like I said, my education was really hard. It was tough. I have 24 years working in the field, and many roles that I've played throughout my career. I started off as a teacher assistant, and the teacher that I worked for my second year in the field became one of my biggest influencers and one of my mentors, and now happens to be one of my bosses. He's the executive director at Pacific Oaks Children's School, Victor Soto. From a teacher assistant, I moved all over the place, different types of program. I worked for Head Starts, religious-based, school-based, district-based, private school now. I went from a head teacher to a master teacher to instructor of child development. This past summer, I started a consultant role. And I'm also a professional developed presenter. So yes, teaching in the preschool sometimes can be, well, what are you going to do with that? What can you do? There's so much that you can do. And I'm telling you, there's so much that you can do. You meet amazing people like, for example, Leah, who's here. We've done a lot of great mentorship opportunities working with Rio Hondo. I was given the opportunity to do a podcast, and we talked a lot about education. We talked about what high quality education is. We talked about mental health. And all of this because I was a preschool teacher, and the podcast wanted to talk to someone that worked in preschool. And then that opened up many other opportunities for me. One of the biggest roles that I enjoy doing as a male is being a mentor teacher. I am one of certified by the California Early Childhood Mentor Program. It's a program that really doesn't get a lot of recognition, but if you are interested in becoming a mentor for the state of California, there's a lot of great perks to it. Again, shoot me an email and I can get you in contact with that program. I also mentor at the University of Southern California, where I did my grad studies, at Cal State LA, where I currently teach, and I also did my undergraduate studies. I also mentor East LA College. I also started out my academic career there, and Rio Hondo, of course. Teaching at the higher education is also another path that I always wanted to take. I just didn't know how. And when I became a mentor teacher, I met a lot of great people that would sort of plant the seed in my head into saying, why don't you teach at the higher education? And I started off in a program called Project Match. Again, if you want more information, I can definitely help you out with that. And then that opened the doors to teach at the four-year university and at the community college level. And yes, even at the higher ed, there really isn't that many men in the field. In child development and our department at Cal State LA, we have one full-time faculty that's a male, and we have a handful of them that are adjunct, like myself, that are men. And every other instructor is a woman. And at East LA College, I believe there's 4 of us total. So as you can see, there really isn't that many men in the field. And the reality of it is that we bring a very different dynamic into the field, a very different type of conversation. Not to say that it's better or worse, but to say that it is a different dynamic. Think of growing up, how many positive male role models did you have in your life? And when you think about positive male role models, what were they doing in their lives? How did they impacted you? What was it about that dynamic that you had with them that just gave you a whole different outlook in what you were doing or guided you into that path that you wanted to get to? Another role that I have, I present throughout the state of California in early childhood education. I've done presentations for all those organizations there. And it all revolves around my area of research, which is social and emotional development. And I'll come back to that in a second. Some side gigs that you can have if you wanted to take a route that I've taken is you can be a consultant. Obviously, you need to have your academics pretty much supporting you, being classified as a specialist in early childhood education, specifically in child development with research of social emotional development. I do provide some consultations with that to programs. I've done consultations for one private school, one Head Start, and another Title V school, which is pretty interesting into how they view what early childhood education is. They bring in a person that has a different lens, and then you're providing your 2 cents into making a program have a different outlook. I've done a keynote presentation this past last month, actually. I was up north for Lake County, Department of Lake County Education. I'm also, like I said, seen as an early childhood education specialist. To have all this opportunity, my advice is get your degrees. There was a time in my career where I was afraid of what was going to happen to my career because I felt like I wasn't given the opportunity that I wanted. I didn't feel that I had the proper mentorship. So it was pretty much up to me to decide, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to go out there to get what I want and to be able to advocate for children? Get your education. And there's programs that are going to close. There's, we had the economy uncertainty. We had a lot of schools that lost fundings. One thing that no one can take away from you is your education. So invest in yourselves to be able to say that, hey, you know what? No matter what happens, I'm always going to have my degree to back it up. Like I mentioned to you, I am a doctorate student at Pacific Oaks College, and that is really interested into how we are researching what social emotional development is. That's actually my area of research. To be able to understand why, as an adult, I think the way I do, why I feel the way I do, why I react the way I do, and have a philosophical approach into helping children avoid those challenges can be very rewarding. So, as growing up in a very traditional Mexican family, as a male, there are certain things that I am allowed to feel and certain things that I'm not. During the research of social emotional development, you will find a lot of things that contradicts what, in my case, what my Mexican culture taught me. So having this other lens of helping children develop a sense of agency, helping children develop a sense of empathy and sympathy towards other people. More importantly, helping them label emotions. So when they're adults, like myself, don't struggle with these emotional challenges that I currently struggle with. So this is my motivation and inspiration to impact social change. There's a lot of things in society that I wish I can change, but I don't have that power yet. I do feel that working with children gives you that power. It gives you the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? This is how I'm going to change it. And so far, I've been blessed to work with great people that trust me and trust the research that I've done to be able to inject that into schools, children, teachers, and future teachers. So what is social emotional development in early childhood education? One of the, my windows. One of the things that I've always been pushing for the past maybe 12 years now is social emotional development. And the reason being is that I grew up in, like I said, in a very traditional Mexican culture. I grew up in East LA, Boyle Heights area. went to a school predominantly Latinos, and it was very difficult to understand why I felt the way I felt. In other words, my emotional intelligence was non-existent. Um, Now, as an adult, there's a lot of things that I wondered if I had that emotional intelligence, how would my life be right now? What would I be doing? How would I be doing those things? I think back to past relationships. I think back to past friendships, to the relationships that I even had with my parents and my siblings. I did lose my father 4 years ago, and I think back and reflect on a lot of his ideologies into how he raised us really impacts me as a father figure now. A lot of the conversations that I have with my girls, I didn't have with my mom, but I did have it with my father. I can't tell you that I had with my teachers because I did the math, I think it was 4 male teachers in my first to 12th grade education. Couldn't have those conversations. But when I started meeting mentors, and my two biggest mentors in my current life right now, currently, are men. And the conversations that I have with them when we talk about social emotional development, it's interesting on how we conclude that we didn't have emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the awareness of why you feel the way you feel. Now, social and emotional development is helping children develop skills to cope with that emotional intelligence. So if I didn't have EI, what makes you think that I would have a good SED? I didn't, right? Now, unfortunately, these skills lacked throughout my life up until maybe when I started ELAC, finally, when I took my first child development class. So I can confidently tell right now that I wasn't a good friend. I wasn't a good person to have conversation with or have a sympathetic approach because I had a lot of anger inside of me. And yes, I do point the direction of my culture taught me that, because as a man being raised by traditional Mexicans, it was tienes que ser hombre, you have to be a man, right? And being a man meant not showing any type of weaknesses, which includes crying. But through my research that I've done with social emotional development, crying stems from fear. But if I was okay to show fear and anger, why wasn't I allowed to cry? Was it because men had a huge impact in my family that raised me a certain way? Was it because I didn't have those conversations with my mom, who to this day is still very emotional? Bless her heart, right? It's a lot of layers, right? And it's hard to peel those layers off and to develop that understanding and saying like, that's what it was. The reality is that through the research that I've done through social and emotional development is we have to help children learn to identify, label, express, and articulate those emotions. There is research from Wang back in 2021, and the research that he developed was children have a higher academic performance when they have exploratory, let me move my windows, experiences in early childhood education, which includes social and emotional development. This long-term academic success is what we want, right? So we have preschool programs, early childhood education programs. We now have TK and ETK programs that are pushing for the academic component, and we want children to be successful long-term. But we're failing to inject social and emotional development. So if we want to use Wang as a premise into saying this is the path to develop that academic success, we can't forget about that social emotional component. One of my biggest push in my career is for social and emotional development and play. In the experience that I had 24 years, pretty sad to say that a lot of the schools that I worked for didn't have either one of them. The type of play that children get was structured, and it had a goal, it had a specific outcome that was developed by adults. And it wasn't around socialization. It wasn't around building relationships. It wasn't about understanding, labeling, articulating emotions. It was about, can you do this outcome? Can you count to whatever it is? Can you recognize the colors, the shapes, the numbers, the sizes? I'm not saying they're not important. What I am saying, though, is if you want that academic success, you have to allow children to explore their own emotions. Again, in my experience as a man in the classroom, when I advocate for equality and inclusivity in the preschool, it always comes back to, well, how is that gonna help children accomplish these academic components? So they work together, right? You want academic success, then you need to have a good sense of who you are. Think of a class that you took throughout your careers and you just didn't like it. How well did you perform? Now think of a class that you really enjoyed. How did you perform in that class? Most of you have gone or taken a higher ed class. Think of a class that you couldn't connect to, but you had to take because it was a requirement. For me, I always think back to English 101. Oh gosh, I failed that class so many times. I struggle with it so much, and a lot of it had to do with English is not my primary language. So I had to take this class. I couldn't go to the professor because I couldn't trust the professor. I just didn't feel that the professor and I had a connection. Sure, some of it comes from me, but the other has to come from the professor. Here's a class that I don't want to take. Here's a professor that I don't have a relationship with. I just don't feel comfortable talking to them. How am I supposed to be academically successful? Regardless if it's a male or female. Now think of a class that you were so engaged with. Was it because you had a good relationship with the professor? Or was it the content? Now, if it's both, I can assure you, you're probably doing really well. You did really well in that class. If it wasn't, if it wasn't either one of them, there was some form of motivation where you said, you know what, this was good. I don't mind coming to this class. When you take that into account into saying, when you have an emotional investment in what you are doing, I guarantee you are more than likely to be successful. When you don't, you probably don't. But is it that you don't have an emotional investment because you don't know how to regulate your social and emotional aspect of it? Because you lack the emotional intelligence? You just don't know how to get yourself to that point and to say, you know what, this is something that I really want to get to. So I'm going to find a way to invest emotionally into this. Again, it comes back to having that social and emotional awareness. I'll give you another example before we move on to the next slide. One of the biggest things that I've struggled with is anger. And let me emphasize, I was that driver that whenever you cut me off, I'd lose it. I would make it a point to try to get in front of you and then slam my brakes and then make eye contact and then flip you off. And, typical road rage example, that was me. And it was finally came a point in my life where I said, I don't want to continue feeling this way. Like I'm done. I'm done being angry. I'm done feeling like my emotions are not valid. I decided to go seek therapy. So here's a cultural aspect of that. I went to my parents. My dad was still alive at that time. And I said, hey, I think I need to go see a therapist. And now this is the cultural lens. My mom, she stood up in rage and she was like, Jorge, pero no estás loco. Jorge, but you're not crazy. And I said, right. And I don't want to get to that point. So I need to go get that proper help. In my culture, seeing a therapist, that's a no-no. You can't do that. My dad didn't say anything. My dad couldn't make eye contact with me. There's tears flowing down his face. He took a deep breath and he said, "Lo que te convenga, mijo, whatever is best for you." Didn't make eye contact. And my mom said, "No, Jorge, come and talk to me. I'm your friend." And I love my mom. I looked at her and I said, "Mom, you're one of the reasons why I need to go." And what do you mean? I did the best that I can. And so she starts naming the accolades, right? You've done this, you've done that, you have this, you have that. And I said, yeah, but the things that you can't see is what I'm struggling with, like what's in here and what's in here. And that has a lot to do with my culture, and just as much as it has a lot to do with my education. How do we as teachers, and myself as an early childhood educator, prioritize colors, numbers, shapes, and sizes over someone's emotional well-being? How? How do I say, you know what? I know you're not in the mood right now to learn, but we're going to go through the letter of the week. Get over your feelings and start doing the letter of the week, or you're not going to go outside and play. Oh, gosh. That's a whole other workshop, right? Whole other conversation to have about that. But the cultural aspect of what mental health is, what social and emotional development is, that's what I want to do. As a male, as a male teacher in my field, early childhood educator, to hear a man tell you it's okay to say you're not okay. It's okay to feel the way you feel. And if you need help, I can't help you with that, but I will go with you to get that help that you need, because you deserve it. Because when you're well and you're a teacher, you know who's going to benefit from that? Your kids, your children, your students. You want social change? Then start normalizing what social and emotional development is. You want to change the way we respond when someone cuts you off in the freeway? Okay, then start developing that emotional intelligence to know what your triggers are, and then to change the way your nervous system reacts to those triggers. That's not an easy task. If you're coming from my culture, that's your nervous system doesn't even exist. That's because I can't physically see it, right? Your feelings, those don't matter either. You got to check them. Because again, growing up in a very traditional Mexican culture as a man, you better not cry, Jorge, because I'm going to give you a whooping and I'll give you a reason to cry. All of this comes back to the lack of EI, the lack of SED in my culture, but then doing a lot of research and coming to the conclusion that in schools, we're not practicing that either. But we want to have all these academic success. We can't have that, right? And a lot of the research that I did do in gathering this data, most of the men that are in the education field strive for leadership roles, strive for administration, which there's nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. But for those of you that are in that position or seeking that route, you have just as much power to change the way we teach our kids. I know I'm getting on a tangent because this is my passion, this is my area of research, and 24 years in early childhood education, there's a lot that we need to do to change. There's a lot of things that we should do to change this. I'm going to give you guys some time to have a Q&A. So the reflection that I want you guys to take away from this is, how did Jorgito get to this point? Well, Jorgito was an immigrant, illegal immigrant at that time from Mexico, came into this country. So we jumped around a lot in the South Central area. We grew up in poverty, grew up in welfare, food stamps, didn't have much to eat. At times, didn't have nothing to eat. And I had a conversation with my dad, must have been right before I finished high school. And I was complaining to him about my education and my teachers. And he said very, very casually, like, ¿Y qué vas a hacer? So what are you going to do? And in that conversation, the message was either you're going to continue to complain about it, or you're going to do something about it. What I decided to do was to break the mold in education. Sure, I didn't have a lot of male teachers. I didn't see a lot of male teachers. And to this day, I still don't see a lot. But the breaking of the mold is, as a male teacher, early childhood educator, preschool teacher, I want to break that mold by injecting research into how I teach. I want to make sure that everybody that takes a class with me or hears one of my presentations or has a conversation with me about breaking molds starts with theory and understanding theory. And I know to a lot of people, when you hear the word theory, you probably roll your eyes or you cringe or you get disconnected. Well, theory is what helps me understand who I am and how I can get better at what I do. Remember, theory is just an idea, and it's not that difficult. I'm going to give you my teaching approach, my pedagogy that revolves around these theorists: Bowlby, Bandura, Bronfenbrenner, Erickson, and Maslow. If you happen to have time later during the day, do a quick Google search for these theories, take a screenshot if you want to, and then ask yourself, why am I the way I am today? You look at any of these theories, this is going to be your groundbreaking into understanding why you are the way you are today. I had a good conversation yesterday with a really good friend of mine, and she mentioned something about we're talking about childhood experiences, and I said, tell me what your childhood was like, and let me psychoanalyze that. She shared with me, and I gave her my theoretical perspective, and we were cracking up into saying like, gosh, that's so true. That is so accurate. And I said, I know, it's crazy. This is all theory. When we understand why we are the way we are, we can break molds. We're not confined into who we need to be, who we should be. Well, everybody says I have to do this, so that's what I'm going to do. This is not a shot at any of the Dodger fans. I'm not a Dodger fan, but those of you that are Dodger fans, congratulations. Why are you a Dodger fan? Here we go. Go ahead. Let me have it on the chat. Go ahead. Why are you a Dodger fan? I asked the same question in my Cal State LA class, and the students that did answer, yes, Corbin. Someone in their family, someone they admire, influenced them to believe that the Dodger was the team to root for. My dad, bless his soul, he's probably still up there celebrating. Huge Dodger fan. Huge. When one of his last wishes was to be cremated against cultural beliefs, right? And his request was to be cremated with the Dodger jacket that he had. I have his picture, right? So I usually sit here when I'm doing these, and I have him right there. He wanted to be cremated in the Dodger jacket, and he got his last wish. I'm not a Dodger fan because I'm a Giants fan. I'm a Giants fan because of my dad. We were at Dodger Stadium, and I asked them who are the Dodgers' biggest rivals. And I think I was probably like 8 or 9 years old. And he's like, oh, the San Francisco Giants. And he's going off. And why? I said, that's my team. Breaking molds. It's hard. But it helps you get uncomfortable and then get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Because feeling uncomfortable is a feeling, and it's going to be validated. Again, I invite you guys to research any of these theories and to dive into that conversation of why are you the way you are? Yes, teaching for me was something that I always wanted to get into, but not because I had a great teacher that motivated me or because there was a teacher that, you guys are booing me because I'm a Giants fan? Thank you. Teaching, I got into the teaching because I want to make a difference in children's lives. I want to make an impact in how we teach and what we teach and why we teach. I see some of you that I work with. I saw Miss Angie here. Miss Angie, props. Shout out to you. Benji, I see Benji, and pardon if I miss any of you, but those of you that have worked with me, I'm sure it was really frustrating to work with me at the beginning, but then after we had a blast. And I can assure you that a lot of the things that we did wasn't traditional because you would ask me, why are we doing it this way? And again, it's not a sense of pride of wanting to break molds. It's a sense of pride of knowing how to inject theory into how human development happens. I challenge you guys to go into this weekend and really reflect on why you are the way you are. And then ask yourself, is this the way that you want to be the rest of your lives? Think back to any mentors that you have in your life and ask them, why are you what you are? If you don't have a mentor, you have my email. Reach out. I have my schedule is very busy, but I will get to you. My semesters eventually do come to an end. I do have some downtime. And I invite you to have a conversation with me. If you need any type of guidance into what type of research you should do, for those of you that are doing research, let me know. I want to help you. I want you to also think really hard about teaching. Where are we at today? Where we're going to be come January, because things are going to change. But you have the power to change society. You have the power to inject so much into future generations and to break molds of continuous repetition and doing it just because we've done it for the past X amount of years. If you're looking for any of the references that I talked about, this is my reference page. Leah has my PowerPoint. I emailed to her. She's going to upload this for you guys to have access to. I'm just going to go back to the first page so you have my information. That's a QR code that you can scan. It'll take you to my LinkedIn. Again, before we go, we have about a couple of minutes. If there's anyone that has any questions, you want to have any conversations about anything that was talked about, now's your time. Robbie, go ahead, Robbie.
Hi, how are you? Pleasure.
Hey, Robbie.
Hi. One of the things I think about when it comes to like racism and sexism in the field is, how do we overcome it? And I've noticed that a lot of people, when they think about recruiting men in the field, they'll, resort to, well, women are the nurturers and have some sort of like assumed universal biological sort of basis for that. Or they'll assume like, well, if they're not in the field, then in that case, maybe it's not their calling, as if like divine inspiration or intervention were kind of like, what's supposed to happen before you get a job, right? and so we don't recruit. But in that non-recruiting sort of way, and given like the sheer number and majority of women in the field, I'm kind of left wondering, as I reflect back, in a way that, in the same way you had to deal with like, issues of masculinity growing up in your culture, if culturally we sort of see the effects of bullying in the field from the majority, because we know through the research that, girls at a young age, they don't bully with violence, they bully through social exclusion. And I feel like that's something that the field really needs to grapple with before we can genuinely recruit men in the field. That we have to understand what social exclusion looks like and how that is, bullying, and it can lead to harassment of men in the field.
Yeah, definitely. And so two things. First, we'll go back to this slide into why men are not in the workforce, and only 2% of men are. One of the factors is that men are viewed with suspicion. And yes, there's. I've experienced a lot of what you talked about. Not going to get into details of it, but I can tell you that we can't change anyone. Through this conversation, if you felt empowered, great. I can't change the way you think, but I can change the way that I see you. And I can change the way that I view myself in a social setting. And that's where understanding what social and emotional development is. Where is your emotional intelligence in that? What do you want to accomplish, regardless of what anyone else is saying? If we continue to fall into that mold of what society wants us to be, then we're going to continue living our lives based on someone else's expectations. When I hear you talk about recruitment, most of the conversation that I've had with men that are want to get into teaching but don't know about early childhood education is, does it pay well enough? Well, just like any job, doesn't matter how much you make, it's still not going to be enough. It really depends on what is enough for you. To me, you can't place a monetary value into a career. I'd rather have that I'm able to teach, I'm able to change people. I'm able to help them get to a point in their life where they're going to say, you know what, this really helped me. And it was because of that conversation with Jorge. I hear what you're saying about equity also and inclusivity. And that's another uncomfortable conversation. But we have to be willing to say, I know it's hard, but I'm up for the challenge and I'm going to start leading that conversation. So, Robbie, I invite you to be part of that change. I invite you to be part of that process or part of that conversation into saying that, you know what, this is what I've experienced and this is where we need to be. And how do you get there? Apply to theory. Yes, in my culture, and let me tell you, I would tell you full disclosure, I don't know what a healthy relationship looks like. That has everything to do with my cultural upbringings. However, after understanding what attachment is, I can tell you what to look for in healthy relationships. I'm raising two daughters and I want to have a healthy relationship with them. I didn't have that with my parents because they were in survival mode, right? But I was never told or even shown how to be nurturing. You ask any of my children right now, the 19 that I have in the class, I can assure you that they will tell you that Jorge is very nurturing with them. You can even ask the families that I work with. And all of this wasn't because of my cultural upbringing. It was more of me wanting to get better at what I do, which required me to get educated and to understand how to do that. So I'm going to put the ball back in your court, Robbie, and ask you very respectfully, how can we help you get there to have that role, to be able to have these conversations with everyone else, and then you take the lead in this? Great question. Carlos, I see your hand. Where'd you go, Carlos? Carlos? No.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yes, we hear you, Carlos. What's up? How are you?
Good. Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. Sorry.
No problem. You're good. Talk to me.
But I was only gonna say I just have something very brief that I want to share, and then after that, I just have a question just for clarification.
Mhm.
You know, to add to some things you said, you know, as I mentioned in the chat, no one told me to, but when I entered my early adulthood, it was a decision I made on my own about wanting to have a therapist just because I wanted to just find ways to improve my coping skills as I entered the young adulthood, because I just felt like now as an adult, things I would have more alternative, where versus when I was still a child growing up, it was a lot harder then because I did not know as much as I know now. Because long story short, I remember I even shared it with family, but like not at home, but in school, if I had understandings, because I had misunderstandings by some of my educators, and the way I would speak up sometimes has almost gotten me in trouble to the point where I got sent to the principal's office. Thankfully, no, but I would have been mentally prepared if I did. But I would talk about it with my family, and they would many times also help me. Like if they told them about my behavior, they would like help me by backing me up in the sense where like what I mean by that. But I have really like shocked a lot of people in school, in the sense where like they would not expect me to talk like like an adult. And I don't know how I did it, but I guess you could say I just learned through like through like, because people with autism, especially kids, are good at looking at details with relatives and peers around them.
Yeah,
But
thank you, Carlos.
But the last question I just have for clarification is, because this is extra credit, are we gonna have to write some kind of reflection?
You have to do a presentation, Carlos. No, I'm kidding. Carlos is one of my students at Cal State LA, and I see some of you guys are here. Thank you for coming. When I stop sharing, just take a screenshot, and then you guys can upload it to the assignment tab.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Yes,
Thank you.
Corbin. You're welcome, Carlos.
I know you talked about like how a lot of your career has been in like early childhood education.
Yes.
Do you ever like think of going into like the high school level or like the middle school level?
Great question, Corbin. You know, honestly, no, because that was bad. That was really bad. So, from a theoretical lens, high school students are going through, for lack of a better term, identity crisis. They're trying to find themselves, and they're also being influenced by their peers, good or bad way. So in this developmental stage by Erickson, they want to figure out who they are. And a lot of the times, the way that our education system is in the area that I live in, there's a lot of push for certain things that don't focus on social emotional development, which lacks emotional intelligence. So I don't want to be part of something that I'm not comfortable with. I'll give you an example. When I was doing my undergrad studies at Cal State LA, I also did my teaching credentials, multiple subject. Never used them because when I did my student teaching, I realized that I was given a box curriculum, and that box curriculum had an agenda every day. At this time, you have to do this. At that time, you have to do that. And whether they get it or not, you got to move on. I'm not okay with that as an educator. I'm not okay with being told that everyone learns the exact same way, the exact same time. I'm not okay with that. And as an educator, I want to instill change. I want to instill and build individuals to their true full potential through social and emotional development. Early childhood education, especially Pacific Oaks Children's School, they give me that opportunity. Teaching at Cal State LA, teaching at East LA College, I get that opportunity to inject my own pedagogy into it that helps students really reflect on them. Those of you that are taking my class and I asked you to write that reflective journal, it was tough for you to reflect on your own way of thinking and the way you feel and then connect it to your culture. I know that was hard. And that has a lot to do with the way that you've been conditioned to learn. So to answer your question, Corbin, I don't see myself doing middle school or high school because I just, that's not my style of teaching. I am more than willing to come and talk to them, have a conversation, a workshop, totally for that. But see myself in a classroom like that? Absolutely not. No disrespect, my admiration to those of you that are seeking that route. Leah, to your question, to your hand. We done?
Sorry to interrupt. Yes, I have to go to the next session, but I don't want to interrupt this beautiful conversation here. So I'm gonna make you host, Jorge.
Okay.
And also, do not forget, I put the link for the opportunity drawing and the survey on the chat. I hope
see
you
that.
guys saw that. And so
Yes.
don't forget. See you guys on the next one.
Thank you, Leah. So before you guys go, if you are doing this workshop for extra credit, just take a screenshot. I see Edward. I see you, Edward. Just take a screenshot with your phone or go to the participants. As long as my name is there and your name is there, that's what you're gonna upload to the assignment tab once I open it up. I'll probably do it over the weekend. Anyone else have any other questions? I do have to jump into my other meeting. I'm not sure if any of you guys are part of it, but hey, you're more than welcome to come to that one. That one starts at 12.
Well, Professor, I just want to say thank you for.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Leslie. Thank you for being here. If you guys don't have any questions, hang tight. If you don't have any questions, thank you for your time. Enjoy your Saturday. If there's anything I can do to help, please feel free to reach out. If you have questions, stick around. If not, I'll see you guys later. I'll be here for a while.
Que Dios lo bendiga.
Gracias, igualmente.
Bye.
Very
I do have a question. We
I have a
get
question.
double credit.
Rosanna, tell me again. You were glitching.
Yes, Do we get double credit if we do the 2 workshops, or are you
Yes.
only
Yep.
giving for
Yes.
one work?
Yep. It's
Yeah.
they're independent of each other, and once I upload the assignment tab, you'll see. Yeah.
So
Edward, you had a question?
Yes. I don't know how to take a screenshot, Professor.
You know what? Send me an email because we talk a lot, Edward, so you'll be fine.
All right, just send it through the I'm gonna attend the other sessions too to get all the extra credit.
Okay,
So-
sounds good.
So just send you an email through Canvas.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Professor.
Yeah, you're welcome. Carlos, I see your hand.
sorry, one more time.
Yeah.
I got a little mixed up. So I know I took a screenshot off of my phone, the screen that said reflection and breaking the mold in education in that list. Does that count?
Yes, yeah, you're fine.
Okay, and now you said that we don't have to attend. We can if we want to, but if even if we do just one or the other, we'll still get the extra credit.
Yes.
Okay, I will then so did you say to email the screenshot or to just put it under that extra credit attachment?
No,
part?
I'll upload the assignment tab for you and I'll send you the email. I'll let you know.
Okay, cuídate. Buen día.
Igualmente. Gracias, Carlos. Anyone else have any other questions? We have like about 3 minutes because I got to jump into my other one. Marta, Hector, Maria, Rosy, is it a them? Gina, you guys have any questions?
No, yo solamente quería decirle que me encantó su motivación, me encantó su presentación. A mí me cuesta un poquito más de trabajo porque yo siento que mi inglés no es muy bueno y de repente con alguna palabra me pierdo, pero me encantó, sentí que esta vez entendí todo lo que estaba diciendo, me sentí muy confortable, sentí mucho orgullo, quise también compartir quizá cosas a lo mejor, sí, a lo mejor no, estoy trabajando en mi part-time en una escuela de adultos y están dando clases de Child Development. Entonces, cuando llegan a firmar, miro que hay como unas 28 mujeres y hay 2 afroamericanos que vienen y firman y entonces me piden la lista y como tenemos clases de flebotomy y también de otras cosas, digo, flebotomy, child development, oh, nice. Y me siento muy orgullosa de ver que hay hombres queriendo hacer el trabajo. Ahorita estoy trabajando en una escuela que pertenece a San Nance, así se
Oh,
llama la
St. Anne's,
corporación,
sí.
ajá, en San
Ajá,
Nance.
por Echo Park, ¿no?
Ajá, está en Los Ángeles y yo estoy trabajando aquí en la ciudad de Linwood. Mi nombre es Marta Lugo y la escuelita está en una elementaria que se apellida Lugo. Entonces, cuando llega la gente ahí, siempre les digo, oh, bienvenidos a mi escuela, porque es Lugo, ¿verdad? Entonces, resumiendo un poquito, en un año que he estado, tuve un compañero que se llamaba Sam, era el único hombre entre todas las mujeres. Después lo mandaron a Los Ángeles y hace poco, como unos 3 meses, entró otro muchacho que se llama Daniel. Entonces él también entre todas las mujeres. Y a mí se me hace algo tan bonito, pensando eso que dio acerca de los teoristas, yo también siempre pensé eso, ¿por qué hay menos hombres haciendo esto cuando los profesionales están hablando de lo que es el desarrollo de los niños? ¿Verdad? Entonces, ya después miré, dije, ay, él es latino, puedo comentarle alguna cosa, pero a veces por mi inglés me detengo de ciertas cosas, solo escucho y pienso las cosas y a veces para escribir me cuesta un poquito, pero estoy muy, muy feliz, muy satisfecha que yo creo que con esta pura clase, voy a llenar unas 15 páginas de información para la maestra. Me dio mucho
Pues
orgullo.
tienes mi información, Marta, es lo que necesitas, me avisas y aquí estoy
Ajá.
para servirle.
Muchísimas gracias, qué amable.
De nada.
Bendiciones. Bye.
Igualmente, gracias.
Ajá,
All right, guys,
bye.
I'm gonna jump into my next one. I'll see you.